Good morning, everyone. Thanks for this very, very warm welcome, and I'm really happy to be here, and also very to have Dr. Nisanth as a friend and as somebody who really wants to see this Indo-German research projects happening. Thank you very much for your support. And yeah. Dr. Nisanth told me, tell a little bit about yourself, about what you did in homeopathy. I will do that instantly so that you will have some options for questions, and then I will talk a little bit about my research, and then we move to the Q&A later on. Okay, that's me. It's a little bit small, but so officially, I came here to India with another project, which is about research infrastructure, which is my company, CellCollab. So we are providing co-working spaces for scientists, rather agnostic what they do. If they need a regulated environment, if they need equipment, then we have it all there. So we have 3 sites in Germany, and are currently exploring the options to set up further sites in India to establish this kind of cross-border collaboration. The other company is Campus Research, which is a charitable limited and focuses on homeopathic research, but generally we are open to CAM in all its facets, whatever helps the patients, and especially what adds to the health of patients who can't afford conventional medicines, which is at least 2 billion worldwide. And the third one, I will talk a little bit about that later, that is to commercialize our homeopathic research and really move to modern version of information-based medicine, which homeopathy always was. But I think we can use some of the research developments over especially the last 30 years to include it and make even better prescriptions. So my background, my homeopathy career started really with getting a book in my hands, was a book, Introduction to Homeopathy for Doctors, a short course. And I took it during my studies of, at that time, pedagogics, and I went through it during one weekend. I was so convinced, I thought, wow, that's it. And then I really was on the hook and started learning homeopathy first for myself, autodidactical, then entering a school and also doing a lot of internships with homeopaths. So I think some of you may know my dear colleague Matthias Strelo. He has been here. He has been one of my teachers, and we've been practicing together, I think, for about 22 years. So in the meantime, I stopped. It was about my dear colleague Matthias, and yeah, I've been practicing homeopathy overall 25 years, but in the last years really moved on to research and also setting up research infrastructure for collaborative projects. Oops. Let me have another look. Yeah, of course, later I had my own school for homeopathy, so we did a lot of education. In Germany we have 2 options, which is either you're a medical doctor or you're a practitioner, and we have a school for practitioners, so we covered the medical part, but also the homeopathy education. And during that time, we also did a lot of remedy provings and preparations, which Nisanth said, tell them something about it. And I will do later, and maybe during the Q&A. During the course of my professional development, I also became part of our registering body, which is the SHZ. So as it is not regulated by the government, everybody could put homeopaths on his sign. So, and yeah, we wanted to solve the problem, so we set up a foundation. A lot of homeopaths, especially teachers, have been part of this body, and so we registered the colleges in Germany, but also did exams, so that if patients go to a homeopath, they can really be sure that's a well-trained homeopath and not just somebody who has done a course over the weekend. Nope. Have to do something or not to do? Okay. Another part of my career in homeopathy was that I've been part of Homeopaths Without Borders. So basically, we set up educational courses for homeopaths in regions where at that time medical treatment was really a problem, like for example, Homeopaths Without Borders. So we did projects, for example, in Bosnia after the war in Yugoslavia, where a lot of people really suffered from post-traumatic stress disorders, but also really like the usual daily medical problems which could hardly be covered. So we set up a clinic there in Mostar, and then later on also started with educational projects there, so that we have a generation of homeopaths in Bosnia. Later on, I was heading the project in Macedonia, so they wanted to have homeopathy, and they knew that Homeopaths Without Borders provide this kind of education, and that was a very, very successful project for us, because they really managed to bring homeopathy into their health system, and a lot of our students are now practicing homeopaths, and they're still doing also education in Macedonia. So that was another part, and I was always in trying to spread homeopathy and trying also to reach people who usually don't have access to good medicine. So yeah, and of course then I was member of our international body, the ECCH, which is organized homeopaths across Europe, where we exchanged in terms of quality of education, research, and that was also a part of my work that I love very much, really to see how homeopathy is practiced in different countries, and who can bring particular ideas and concepts to the table. So, remedy provings and preparation, which was part of our education. I know that in some schools they didn't do it, and I think you really miss such a big chance if you don't do these remedy provings, and if you are not also experienced this really producing a remedy, because if you just step one step back, you will experience a lot of things, and I would say even after 25 years of homeopathy, I was still, if a remedy really matched, it was for me still like a miracle. Though I've seen it for 25 years, always so amazing for me. And but this process of a remedy proving, when you really somehow take off the glasses, how you see the world, and then take another pair of glasses, and everything changes. So, for example, I myself did a little proving of Mercurius solubilis, and I don't have fear in the dark. But at that time, I hadn't. I first experienced how people feel if they have fear in the dark. So that was so amazing for me to really feel it. And I've been through really all parts of remedy proving. So I've proved them myself. I've been working as an organizer and supervisor for remedy provings. And really to see this happen, for me it changed so much, not only about my understanding about homeopathy, but really my understanding about the world, because you think everything you feel and everything you think, that's me, but this me can be altered very easily, and other people just experience the world in a completely different way. And so I would really encourage you, if you feel the impulse, to introduce new remedies. And I think in India you have a lot of traditional plants and snakes we don't have in Germany and stuff like that. So go for it, because every remedy really solves a problem for a patient. There's always somebody out there who will benefit, and you have really a great chance to dive much deeper in a bodily understanding of what homeopathy does than just reading books. Our books are important, absolutely, but include this layer as well, because really for me that changed the game, and also for our students when we did the feedback lessons at the end of the courses. The remedy provings were always very important for them to really feel it. And similar to that, these preparations of remedies. If you really take a substance and then grind it for 1 hour, and just put a pen and a paper beside, and whatever appears, note it down, and you do this together in a group. It's so amazing how a dynamic evolves, and you see immediately the effects of the remedy within this group. We can discuss if it's because there's a lot of dust in the air and people inhale it, or if it's some other effect. Whatever it is, this, especially in a group. If you do it alone, it's okay-ish, but as a group, that's really like a resonance body, like a violin, and the sound becomes much louder and you get group dynamics. And it's also really a great chance to experience a remedy firsthand. And you can just do it on one day of the weekend, and then you have a remedy, and you know how to produce them. So I think that's also very important, that we have these capabilities really to produce new remedies for our ever-growing materia medica. So that's my quote for stepping in really this experience of or first-hand experience of the remedies itself. Okay, next step will be that I talk a little bit about the research programs we run with campus research, and basically, as I said, the idea of campus is to do research, reliable research, and research that is focused really on solving unmet medical needs. And currently we have 2 big issues. The one, of course, is cancer. There are a lot of people worldwide, if they get a diagnosis, they just said, sort out your things and go home, which is really hard. And not only in the poorest countries, but also in countries where I would have said, okay, it should have been paid for, but they simply don't have an option. And as we all know, homeopathy can do quite a lot, including cancer, but I would say only a few homeopaths are really so well educated and know also the so-called smaller remedies, but in the cancer case, they're the most important remedies. So that we somehow should gather more information that what our masters can do is also in or that also, let's say, the average homeopath can access this knowledge and include it into their treatment practice. The other things, we started a project with Dr. Nisanth about the ICD. At that time, ICD-10, we were moved to ICD-11 as well, because we as homeopaths, I would say, to my knowledge, there may be others, but we are the only ones who have a really clear idea what should happen in the course of treatment and what shouldn't happen. So we all notice somebody goes to the doctor, has an eruption, gets some cortisone, and eruption is gone. Doctor is happy, and but we know what can happen. Either it comes back if the life force is still strong, or you have a more severe problem. And we see this quite a lot, even allergies with desensitization, what do you call it? Desensitization, yeah, thank you. I've really seen severe problems in patients. Of course, they didn't have their allergy problems, but then they became suicidal. So for conventional doctors, this is just bad luck. They don't connect it at all. For us, with our theory about Herring's law, also about myosins, it's clear, and for us also the idea of the disease is another thing than just some local process, but we know our life force is affected, and the problem will pop up somewhere else if you just suppress it. So that knowledge is normal as it is for us. Outside our profession, almost nobody can grasp it. They don't have an idea. A lot of even researchers even don't think about the problems. They only target particular diseases. System biology that somehow starts to get into this field, but I think we have a lot to add really to medical research in general, and that was the reason why we wanted to include the knowledge we have to the ICD system, that we can use ICD data really for analysis. And as I already said, we have Herring's law. We also had Dr. Praful Vijayka, who was a great thinker, and I think Herring's law works, but we can communicate with our other colleagues. So if you go to a medical doctor, talk about Herring's law, and they say, what's up with you? So we don't know that, and which one is most important. But with this idea of embryonic development and the germ layers, that's what they know. So I think Herring's law is a good approximation, but with the embryologic approach, we can be more precise, and we can communicate outside our profession, which is very important to really bring things together, because I don't believe in these silos and everybody's doing just his own stuff and saying we are better, they are worse. It's really about bringing the approaches together. And of course, our other concept of myasm, if we start with that, usually researchers and doctors are out. They say that's so outdated, and it's I won't even listen anymore. But myasm, as Vijayka said, it's simply cellular pathology. Either we have inflammation, or we have the processes of psychosis with hyper and hypo, and we have apoptosis and necrosis. That's also something we can talk about with researchers and medical doctors, because they know these kind of processes. So I think we have to really be aware of our language and find a common language. And the idea of the ICD project is really to have this common language and to communicate our knowledge and our findings in a way that others are willing to follow us. We have to make a little step towards them. They're not that open. And and we did, together with Dr. Nisanth, and maybe there are some students here from the last years, we did the first pilot, and we worked on this matrix where we have all of the ICD diagnoses, and then simply tag them, like which myosin is active. That would be apoptosis necrosis in the case of syphilis. If it's about psychosis, it's proliferation or disturbance of proliferation. And SORA is a little bit difficult, and even we could discuss about it, what is included, what may be at another point. But to keep it simple, it's inflammatory states or functional states. Just to have this broad division between that what we call myosins. And our aim is really to have for every ICD diagnosis the myosin, which is then cellular pathology, the site where the process is really originated, and then we add some other stuff also from Vijayka, but also from conventional approaches. We don't completely stick to Vijayka's approach because I think it needs a little bit more. And I'm very happy to further work on this project together, and we may also apply for funding for this because I think that could really benefit a lot of patients, and I know from insurance companies they would love to have this data. I talked to one guy, he provided me with the first ICD in Excel format I had, and he said he was originally hired to understand when the patient becomes a chronic patient or when problems appear, but they don't had a map at that moment, but they didn't have a map at that moment, and so he was not able to solve the puzzle, but I think we can help him, and we can also help other researchers to analyze longitudinal health data in cohorts, of course, but also on the individual level, also for patients. It's good for us. We can see, okay, the patient moves, let's say, from inflammatory process towards psychotic process. That's not good. We should think about our prescription. Even if he or she feels better at the moment, be careful. And also to help patients get through a particular process when we can really say, yeah, it feels bad at the moment. And I know that you don't like this rash you had in the years of your youth, but look, it's much better in terms of severity of the disease, and it's part of the cure. And we could make this visible. I think that will add to the compliance also of the patient if we can really show it. So that's the overall aim of this project, and we will continue to work with AI because nowadays AI can really do this mapping for us, and later we can also use it for pattern recognition, which will be absolutely interesting because I think also our theories still need some refinement. We know quite a lot, but Hahnemann never stopped researching. So therefore I think we should always keep in mind, if you say, yeah, but Hahnemann said, yeah, stick to him, but he said never stop researching. So, I mean, he found politicization, law of similars, and then he developed chronic diseases, and without chronic diseases, we wouldn't be here and really doing good prescriptions, just superficial prescriptions. So let's do both. So stick to him, do really the best we can do on this basis, but also develop further and further, and try to connect it with other kind of research from the medical field. Okay, now I need a little bit of water. Another project and something that I really love is this in vitro research, because it's so interesting really to see homeopathy work on a cellular level. When I started, I was not convinced if it works, because I thought, oh, maybe the life force only works in the whole organisms and single cells don't react anymore. But I think it's quite clear in the meantime, not through our research only, but through research from several teams across the world, that we see cellular effects of homeopathy, and apart from that, that we can use it also to enhance our therapy. We get rid of this placebo discussion, because at least to my understanding, the cells shouldn't have any expectations of what's going on in their particular biome. So I will give you a short introduction about what we have done so far, and also where we want to go in the future. So, as I'm not aware of who is really deep into this cell research, I know some of you colleagues are, I will start with a broad overview of how things work, and then get to the results. So the good thing is you can buy cells, like from the supermarket. You just call and say, could you please deliver me some breast cancer cells or some cervical cancer cells? That's easygoing nowadays. So you order your cells. There are several catalogs. I think in the meantime we have over 2,000 cell lines with particular genetic makeup, also from particular regions of the world. So you can really go into the details there. We started with one standard model, which is MCF7, it's a breast cancer cell line. And we choose this cell line because it has been used in trials before. And I thought, rather replicate, which we need, not only homeopathy, also conventional research really has a replication problem, which is ignored by a lot of people. And so I think we should do more replication research. And so, yeah, you buy these cells, you culture these cells, they need a little bit of treatment and love, and then they grow, and then you can put them in these micro titer plates. So you have these small cavities, and each cavity is a single experiment. It's like a vial. Before that, you had these large vials for biology. Now everything moves to these micro titer plates. And the typical readout is that you somehow add some color. And these dyes, they can identify particular organelles like the nucleus or mitochondria. You can even tag proteins. So in the meantime, you really have dyes for almost everything. And then you can do readout, and readout is, in case of fluorescence, you activate the dyes with a particular wavelength, and then it sends out another wavelength which you can detect. So it's really like cell painting, and in the meantime we really have assays that are called cell painting, because you can paint every particular compartment or organelle in the cell with a particular color. Another way to analyze the cells is really also to use color again and tag them, and then you have sorters. They can count your cells. And let's say if you're looking for particular events in the cell, like apoptosis, then you can tag proteins that appear during apoptosis, and then these FACS, these fluorescence activated cell sorters, can count your cells and even sort them if you want to work with a particular fraction of the cells later. Interestingly, this research on the cellular level started already in 1993, which I was not aware of, that it was that early. First homeopaths started working on it. One cell line, you wouldn't even call it a remedy. They took interferon and potentized it. And it was interesting because they had effects like a sinus curve of activation and inhibition in their cell models. And since then, we really had a lot of trials going on. Different cell lines. HeLa is one very prominent cell line. Then later on, there had been some research about prostate cancer cells, and they used remedies like thuiaconium and cerulatum from the Banerjee protocols, because at that time the Banerjee protocols were quite prominent in the US. They did some research, and they want to see if it works as well on a cellular level. The experiments were a little bit divided. Some had good results, others not, and that's research. I mean, so every time I see some experiments where everything falls into place, I become very, very skeptical. Usually you have some flatliners here or there, you need to repeat something, and so therefore that's all fine, and one also explained why the others may have not detected the effects he saw. But that was in 2006, so it was a bit of a turning point because we saw more activity in cellular research at that time. And that goes on to 2010 with Frankel, again working with conium, thuia, phytolacca, carcinosin. He could show that he had very different effects on the particular cell lines. And I won't go through all of them. But just, you see, there's some research around, and this overview here ends in 2023. There's some more experiments have been done in the last years. Just the major findings. So these patterns of activation inhibition appears every now and then, and I would say that's good because from a conventional point of view, you would say, yeah, but I don't want to have activation in the viability of cancer cells. Yeah, that's true, but if we talk about homeopathy, we know that initially the process of disease can even get worse because before the body starts the downregulation. So it's good that remedies can produce both sides of the spectrum, and we just have to find the right proportion. We saw altered cell viability, which and also apoptotic changes in apoptotic behavior, which is important when we talk about cancer cells. We don't want them to divide, and ideally we want them to start their suicide program, which every healthy cell has, to reactivate it. So the effects of homeopathy are cell-specific. So if you, for example, use phytolacca, which works quite well on breast cancer cells, if you put it on healthy breast cancer cells like MSc that doesn't have any particular effects. Also, if you use it on prostate cancer cells, no particular effects. So that's important that we are not talking about effects of ultra high dilutions on cells, but we need the specific effects to make sure that we only treat the tumor and not kill healthy cells in the body. C30 in the cell models often with very prominent effects, which is also interesting because a lot of homeopaths, without this knowledge, in cancer cases, they rather move to the lower potencies, even also low D. And that seems to make a lot of sense because the susceptibility of the cells seems to be on this potency level. So that doesn't rule out that a high potency may also have effects, but that's something we've seen quite frequently. And we also see, of course, if we see effects, we must have epigenetic effects in the end because we don't have any molecules that interact directly. So our remedies need to work on this really cell regulatory level. So pilot study was done. We took the MCF7 cells. We took these other kind of. Oh, that's still jumping. Okay. And we wanted really to find out all these points you have here about specificity. Again, we had a control cell line. If we see normal dose response curves, which is not the case, and some other stuff. And I will show you the data just very roughly how we did it. So we took this 384 well plates, 384 independent experiments, and we had a series of dilutions. So that was interesting because a lot of the other teams that have been done research in the field before, they use liquid homeopathy preparations, but we mostly use granules. So I wanted to see, do the granules produce the same effects? So we use granules, then dissolved them in water, and then made a twofold series of dilutions. So it was not only a potency, but it was a diluted potency, which will be important when you see the results. That was the plate layout. So we took, we always had a duplicate for each remedy, and then that ran through 12 different measurements. And the idea of this assay is quite simple. You want to see how well are my cells and how well often expresses itself in the ATP levels. If there's a lot of ATP, they are active, they can do a lot of work and usually can divide and have metabolism. So you just have a look at the ATP. If there's a lot of ATP, then you get a light signal. So a very straightforward design. And yeah, then we looked what happens if we put some water to the MCF7 cells. That's what we would have expected. Then we had a look what we put just the dissolved granules on the MCF7 cells. That's also something we could expect. If you feed cells with a little bit of sugar, you will see some effects, but not large effect sizes. And then we added phytolacca, which is very prominent breast cancer remedy, also a remedy from the Banerjee protocols. And then we saw this, I must say, for me, in the first instance, strange pattern. And so you see, you have this one granule dissolved, that's the first measurement. And then the dilution goes on and on and on, and these are single measurements, and then you see that you have somehow windows of activities. If you put just a single measurement, let's say at the 1 to 64, then you would say, oh, that doesn't have any effect, looks like sugar. But if you see the whole range, then you see, oh yes, we do have effects, and we do have effects that we expect from a homeopathic remedy, and not from a remedy that works like a chemical. If you dilute it, you get less effect. So we have a complete different picture, and that took me really a while to somehow grasp what's going on, because the other remedy carcinosin produced a similar picture. So again, initially almost no effect, then a window of activity and plateau, and then activity again. And you see here, you also have both sides. So you have activation and inhibition, but activation is predominant in this case, which also reflects the knowledge of some homeopaths who say, be careful with carcinosin in cancer cases, because if you just can activate, that's a problem. And then we wanted to see, okay, is it phytolacca on cells, or is it phytolacca on breast cancer cells? And we had this control cell line, which is HEC, that is from human kidney, and that was the effects of the phytolacca on another cell line. So it's really cell-specific. And carcinosin had one effect. I don't know, we have to follow this up, if this was a real effect, or if it's just an artifact. Therefore, we would need more reproductions, definitely. We need more money in this kind of research, really, to do more replications, also replications in other labs, which I would love to establish here in collaboration, so that we can run experiments in Germany and in India, so with really independent reproductions outside the lab. Again, these are the both measurements combined. And that is the C200, same remedies, and I would say no effect. That's just noise. And there are also some other remedies. We overall tested 8 of them. And also other important breast cancer remedies like Asterias or Carboanimalis, at least on this cell line, they didn't have an effect. Maybe on another cell line with another genetic or epigenetic makeup, we have to see. Next essay was about apoptosis. So, I mean, the conventional way to deal with cancer is really to kill it, to treat it like something that shouldn't be there, which is true, but that ignores the process behind it. But anyway, if we want to see a tumor vanish, there must be some mechanism of action, and apoptosis is definitely one of them. And this assay works also in a simple way. You have a dye, and when these apoptotic proteins appear, they cut the dye off, and then the dye moves to the nucleus, and you can easily detect it. It was with some live cell imaging. And again, water to see, okay, our cells maybe a little bit easy to disturb, they are not. Then again, our granules as a control, and then our remedies, and then you see activation of up to 500% more apoptosis. And then you see different remedies. Asterias, which didn't act on the viability level, starts to exert effects on the apoptotic level. And also Carboanimalis, which didn't show viability effects, show effects here in the apoptosis. So what we have seen in practice, that homeopaths combine remedies, that they say take this and this, low dose, high dose, different combinations, makes sense. So, I mean, if you're lucky, you find the remedy out of our pool of 8,000 remedies. Maybe that is not important, but usually we don't find the remedy, but we just find a good simile. And it seems like we have different kind of similarities when it comes to the particular pathways. And we also had a look at what happens on the cell cycle level, because if you can convince the cells not to divide any longer, then you also solve part of the cancer problem. And that were the different phases. It's not so clear here. Okay, but to make it short, yes, our remedies do have an effect, a highly significant effect, and you also see that with some dilutions, it seems to be also this kind of plateau. You don't have an effect at all. The green stars are effects around with confidence interval of 95%. And then again, you have effects later on. So what we could show is that it's cell specific, it acts on several pathways, and that's something I would love to understand in more depth, and especially move to the epigenetics, because what we saw here as an effect more on the phenotype level will express itself surely on an epigenetic level. And at that time, some years later, I heard about a book, and this book was about the famous HeLa cells. I don't know if you heard about it. So this was the first established cell line, and it's a really very recommendable book because it's the whole story about the family and how really these cells have been used in labs all around the world. The family wasn't even aware of that they didn't receive any royalties. That has changed in the meantime. And the interesting part for us is usually we have a cell line, we don't know anything about the individual behind the cell line. But HeLa cells are everywhere. They can really be mean if you have them in the lab and they somehow infect your other cell lines. So this cell line, we now have information about the patient who suffered from the original tumor, and that changed the game a little bit. So I read the book, I extracted all the information I could get about the tumor and also about the patient. So like rect hard mass about the size of a 5-cent coin, left-sided, shiny dark red, sensitive to touch, and very fast growing. And we had also the subjective information. I have a knot inside me, a knot that hurts terribly, so worse while having intercourse, and there were also a lump, and then she said that feels like a pebble, and so we have also these as-if symptoms. So that's something homeopaths can work with. We also have some miasmatic information. She had a neurosyphilis, and I handed this data over to some of my dearest colleagues, and I said, please do me a favor, repertorize her, find a remedy for her with the focus on the tumor. So, and from that information from my colleagues, we created a new panel, and there were not only the Banerjee remedies, we added some, there were some polytrasts included, like sepia and conium and thuja, but also so-called smaller remedies, like a pebble, this lapis albus, which is a cancer remedy. So never came across that before in my practice, but here it makes a lot of sense. Condurango, and we had a new plate layout, which might seem strange, but we wanted to avoid that we have some crosstalk between the single vials, because it seems like our remedies do not only act on this molecular level, and with molecular I also mean the water, or the vehicle, so to say, but it also seems to have some field properties. So we just wanted to be sure to exclude that. And Then again, we did some experiments, and I tried another lab because I wanted to see, okay, do they produce these experiments, these effects as well? And again, you can see that you have up and down regulations. This time the graphics is a little bit turned around. So at each point you have one remedy in a 4-point dilution, because we learned from the preliminary experiments that if you take 4, you will get the effect. So because the plateau was only 3, so that is enough. And you can see this was after 6 hours. And we measured again viability. It was upregulated in one case. And you see some downregulation here and there. And what is most important, the last measurement, that's just ethanol. So that time we took liquid remedies, and the ethanol is always little noise around baseline. And we did 4 experiments overall, and there you can see that remedies like creosotum, which makes a lot of sense in this case, with syphilitic background and easily bleeding of the tumor, had strong effects. Dislatis albus, also thuja and nitric acid really showed clear effects. And with thuja, in one experiment, we also saw this upregulation of the apoptosis. Interestingly, after 48 hours, thuja switches back almost to not that much effect, and nitric acid shows more effect. So it seems to be so important, really, to have a look at the time frame in which the effects develop, because you can miss it. Maybe if you do a measurement after 24 hours, you won't see anything, but you will see something at 48 and something at 6. So continuous measurements are definitely a solution for this problem or challenge. And what we also see, and that's something I need more replications for that, but we have some very strong effects, like in the first MCF7 trials. And the colleagues from conventional research really doubted it, but we all know about these miracle cures, and even these miracle cures without homeopathy. So they are spontaneous remissions, and they must work at such a speed. So there's some mechanism in the body which we can trigger, and which can show really, really fast effects without any molecule. So that's something I think we should follow up, because it's not only about homeopathy, it's really about biology, how life itself functions, and how we can restore our body. So main results, no classical dose-response curve. And if you see experiments with high dilutions and they show you a dose-response curve, I would be skeptical, honestly, because that somehow seems to be another pattern of nature. We also had experiments. I've done it with a lab, so I didn't have full control, but I also had some flatliners. I don't know if they missed something, so that's also the reason why I want to do it all in-house, because then I have maximum control. But there's still this reproducibility is not like when you have material substances, because these sinusoidal curves, they shift. They are not exactly reproducible, but the effect is reproducible. You will have a sinus, but you can't say it will be at the 1 to 65 always. That's nothing we can expect. And we have some smaller effect sizes, yes, but our remedies are non-toxic. So you can take them daily over months, and even if you have a 20% reduction in viability or upregulation of apoptosis, fine. So that's okay. And as I've said, these time-dependent effects. So, yeah, would like to do more on that. Up to 90% viability changes, apoptosis up to 500%, and cell cycle regulation plus minus 10. So that are clear biological effects. And with all this knowledge, we would like to move on really to these epigenetic readouts. And because when we can show that we can downregulate pro-carcinogenic genes and can upregulate the tumor suppressors, then at least we have one part of the mode of action. It's not exactly how our cells, how our remedies convince the cells to do this, but it's still a miracle. I mean, also with epigenetics, you see that you have these changes, but how does the method group decide where to go? I think that is still not solved, and I rather see life really as a phenomenon of interacting fields and organizing matter in the secondary. So matter anyway is secondary, so energy information seems to be much more important. Then we have this 2% of energy matter in the universe that we are always talking about. But generally, I think there's different kind of biological makeup, and I think that physics plays quite a role in biology, especially quantum physics. The one thing I said about epigenetics, up-down regulation, we will have a look at that, and we would also like to really use it for finding the minimum for the patient. So if you have an operation, you have tumor material anyway, you can either grind it and run some experiments on it. You can also set up a cell culture and work with the cell culture. That's something what we want to do, that we work with really patient-derived cell cultures, because these cell lines, as I said, you don't know the donor usually, and if you find the right remedy for the cell line, it doesn't help a particular person, but that would be the kind of treatment I would like to have. If I have cancer, give the cancer cells to my homeopath or his research group. They run the experiments, they find tumor-specific remedies, because it's easy to find a remedy that the patient feels better. That's not the point, but like Kent experienced it, you find a remedy for the patient with his approach. He feels better, he dies anyway, because the tumor process is not touched. So we really have to identify the right remedies for the tumor, and that's something I would like to develop, not to show that homeopathy works, but really to benefit individual patients. And ideally, if we do a lot of research on this individual level, in the end we will have so much data, and I think we will learn more about which remedies really do have an effect on cancer, and which we can recommend to people who can afford personalized medicine. Because also this approach will come with some costs initially, but let's say we have 1,000 breast cancer cases and the data, and maybe also epigenetic data, some AI analysis, then we could easily come up with good recommendations for people who have before that just been sent home. We will also expand a little bit on stem cells, because also the tumor has stem cells, so we need to address them as well. That's another part, and that is a picture of this, how the cell painting really could look like, and we want to generate also more data that we can make the effects of homeopathy really visible, because I think that helps. So people struggle also with our small granules, and that they can, this is really a remedy, and so I think some good pictures that really show the effect will also help us in the long term. So I need to say thank you. I'd love to say thank you to the ones being involved. I already mentioned Dr. Nisanth regarding the ICD project and all the students that have been involved, and for the in vitro research, Michael Grafer, a colleague and very generous donor-supported part of this research, and also GHU, Germany, and Hebert, which are manufacturers of homeopathic remedies, support this kind of research, and Professor Clausen from the Fraunhofer Institute. I really get to know him on the party. So it was, what are you doing? What are you doing? And he said, okay, let's do something together. He supported me with my first try during my study at University of Lancashire. So that's it for now. Thank you very much for your attention and welcome you.
The wonderful presentation that Dr. Greg had. So you would appreciate the fact that when you prescribe a medicine in the clinic, and that too through choice of remedy by repertorizing and clinical presentation of the patient, you could see that several of these remedies were playing a very important role in the vitro cell lines of cancer cells as well. So that is the Indo-German project that we are going to start very soon in AIIMS Bhopal and IISER Bhopal, and we would love to include all of you people in that research if you are at all interested in that. We are already doing this ICD project in the past, and that is a fantastic project. You would know by the chronic diseases, the book that Dr. Kindelmann gave us, and the impact it has on the medical science will be proven soon. So, do you want me to talk in Hindi? So, if you, Greg,
I'm fine.
तो ये जो एपिजेनेटिक्स का पूरा नया एक कॉन्सेप्ट है, ऑल्दो बहुत पुराना है, लेकिन अब बहुत तेजी से ये जो फील्ड है आगे बढ़ रही है। एपिजेनेटिक्स को बहुत आसानी से समझने की कोशिश करते हैं कि हमारे जो जीन्स हैं, उन जीन्स में बहुत सारा इंफॉर्मेशन है, और वो जीन्स का जो एक्सप्रेशन है उसकी वजह से डिजीज कंडीशंस और हेल्थ क्रिएट होता है। होता ये है कि मान लीजिए कैंसर की हम बात करें, तो कैंसर में कुछ सेल्स के अंदर में जो इंफॉर्मेशन है, उसमें एक इंफॉर्मेशन ये है कि सेल तुम जल्दी जल्दी अपने आप को मल्टीप्लाई करो, डिवाइड होते जाओ, मल्टीप्लाई करो और ग्रो हो। ये इंफॉर्मेशन कैंसर सेल में है, और अब इस कैंसर सेल में इंफॉर्मेशन की वजह से आपका ट्यूमर डेवलप हो रहा है, मैलिग्नेंसी डेवलप हो रही है। अब करना ये है कि इस कैंसर सेल से बात करनी है कि भैया मत कर तू, ये चुप हो जाए। तो उसको कैसे करेंगे हम? तो ये जो एपिजेनेटिक्स है, इसके अंदर में एक जो ये बार बार बात कह रहे थे, अप रेगुलेशन एंड डाउन रेगुलेशन, वो जो डीएनए का ट्रांसक्रिप्ट बनता है जिससे ये इंफॉर्मेशन आई कि सेल आप मल्टीप्लाई हो जाइए, वो अगर हम बंद कर दें तो क्या हम इसको कंट्रोल कर सकते हैं? ठीक है ये बात? सो डज इट मेक सेंस टू यू? तो अब अगर हम पहली चीज तो ये हो गई, ठीक है, तो इसको हम कॉमन भाषा में ये कहते हैं कि जीन को स्विच ऑन करना और जीन को स्विच ऑफ करना। तो हमने यहाँ पे क्या किया, हमने उस जीन को जो कि मल्टीप्लिकेशन में ज़्यादा करवा रहा था उसको स्विच ऑफ करवाया, और फिर एपोप्टोसिस करवा के उसको जो ट्यूमर है उसको रिग्रेस करवाया। तो एपोप्टोसिस को यहाँ पे आपको ऑन करना है, अपरेगुलेट करना है, और जो कैंसर वाला जो मल्टीप्लिकेशन वाला जो था जीन उसको डाउन रेगुलेट करना है। ठीक है, अब मैं आपको दूसरी बात बताना चाहता हूँ कि कई बार ऐसा सवाल आता है कि आपकी जो होम्योपैथिक दवाइयाँ हैं ये काम कैसे करती हैं। ठीक है, तो ये एक जवाब आपके पास तैयार हो गया। अब आपसे कभी कोई पूछेगा तो आपके पास जवाब है? यस और नो? तो अब दूसरा एक बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट रिसर्च अभी बहुत लेटेस्ट में पब्लिश हुआ, और वो इस पृथ्वी पर सबसे अच्छा जो मेडिकल जर्नल है जिसको हम नेचर जर्नल कहते हैं, उस जर्नल में छप पाना एक साइंटिस्ट का सपना होता है। उस जर्नल में एक बहुत अच्छा रिसर्च पब्लिश किया गया बाय अ प्रोफेसर ऑफ फिजियोलॉजी इन एन इटालियन यूनिवर्सिटी। वो कोई होम्योपैथिक डॉक्टर नहीं है, वो एक प्रोफेसर हैं। उन्होंने ये पाया कि जो रेस्पिरेटरी सेल लाइंस हैं उनके ऊपर अगर ड्रोसेरा आप डालते हैं तो वो कई पॉजिटिव रेगुलेशंस करता है, कई जीन्स को वो अपरेगुलेट करता है, ऑन करता है, और कई जीन्स को वो ऑफ करता है। कई जीन्स जो कि म्यूकस सिक्रीशंस को बढ़ा रही हैं उनको वो डाउन रेगुलेट करता है। इरिटेबिलिटी और इन्फ्लामेटरी मार्कर्स जहां आ रहे हैं उनको डाउन रेगुलेट करता है, और इसका इफेक्ट लगभग 3 घंटे के आसपास शुरू होता है और लगभग 6 घंटे तक इसका असर रहता है। तो इस तरह से ये जो जर्नल के अंदर में ये एपिजेनेटिक्स का छपा, तो आप लोगों में मेरे को ऐसा लगता है ज़्यादातर स्टूडेंट्स हैं, तो आप लोगों के लिए एक बड़ा अच्छा एक पोस्ट ग्रेजुएशन के लिए एक अच्छा फील्ड है जिसमें आप आगे बढ़ सकते हैं। तो चलिए आते हैं हम आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस पे। बहुत तेजी के साथ में बढ़ रहा है, और मेरे को ऐसा नहीं लगता कि कोई भी ऐसा यहाँ पे बच्चा बैठा होगा जो इसे नहीं यूज़ करता होगा। तो अमेरिका की शुरू से ये आदत रही है कि वो अपने चक्रव्यूह में पूरी दुनिया को फंसा लेता है। आपको चैट जीपीटी फ्री में मिलता है, ठीक है, क्लाउड एमआई फ्री में मिलता है, गूगल जेमिनाई आपको फ्री में मिलता है। अब आप उसकी आदत में आपको लत लग गई है इसकी, अब आप उसको छोड़ नहीं पाएंगे। कुछ समय बाद जब वो बोल देगा कि नहीं अब तो आपको पैसे देने पड़ेंगे, तब आप पैसे देना शुरू करोगे। तो ऐसे हम उसके चक्रव्यूह में फंस चुके हैं। बिल्कुल ऐसा ही उसने किया था सालों पहले जब माइक्रोसॉफ्ट का विंडोज़ आया था। उसने सारे स्कूलों में, सारे कॉलेजेस में इसको फ्री कर दिया। उससे अच्छे ओपन सोर्स अवेलेबल हैं ऑपरेटिंग सिस्टम्स, लेकिन आपको बचपन से क्लास 1 से क्लास 12 तक और 12 के बाद आपके लैपटॉप्स के ऊपर में विंडोज़ फ्री मिलता था। अब आप चाह के भी दूसरे स्विच नहीं कर पाएंगे और आप उस जो है इकोसिस्टम में आप फंस के रह जाएंगे। तो ये एक जो है अलग कहानी है जिसको हम बाद में डिस्कस करेंगे, लेकिन फिलहाल हम फंस चुके हैं। लेकिन इससे ये एक टूल की तरह है जिसे आप यूज़ करेंगे तो आपको ये आपके काम में मदद करेगा, है ना। तो मेरे जो स्टूडेंट्स हैं वो अब जब भी अपना थीसिस लाते हैं या प्रोजेक्ट वर्क लेके आते हैं तो उसको एक बार पढ़ के आप समझ जाते हैं कि ये एआई ने लिखा है। कल तक जो बच्चा इंग्लिश का ग्रामर नहीं जानता था, आज वो इतनी अच्छी ग्रामर लिख रहा है, एक भी स्पेलिंग मिस्टेक नहीं है, हाँ, और इतना अमेरिकन इंग्लिश लिख रहा है। तो सवाल है कि कहीं ना कहीं कुछ ना कुछ गड़बड़ है, और मैं उस पर ज़्यादा ध्यान इसीलिए भी नहीं देता क्योंकि वो एक टूल है, उसको बहुत अच्छे से आप यूज़ करेंगे तो वो आपके लिए फ़ायदेमंद है। अब होम्योपैथी में एआई को हम क्यों समझना चाहते हैं, उसका एक बहुत इम्पॉर्टेंट रीज़न है। क्योंकि देखिए ऐसा है कि मैं ये जानता हूँ कि होम्योपैथी में अगर कुछ भी होना है तो आपको उस बात को बच्चों को, स्टूडेंट्स को, प्रैक्टिशनर्स को कन्विंस करने के लिए हैनेमैन साहब ने उसके बारे में कुछ कहा था ऐसा बताना पड़ता है, तो वो ज़्यादा अच्छे से कन्विंस होते हैं, या कैंट साहब ने ऐसा कुछ बताया। तो आप देखेंगे कि हमारे जो रिपर्टरी है उस रिपर्टरी में सबसे पहले डॉक्टर हैनेमैन ने कहा था कि हमको एक कैटलॉग की ज़रूरत है, जिसके लिए उन्होंने कैटलॉग बनाया भी, अल्फ़ाबेटिकल कैटलॉग उन्होंने बनाया भी, लेकिन वो सक्सेसफुल नहीं हुआ, वो कभी पब्लिश नहीं हुआ। तो वो हमेशा ये कहते थे अपने जो है जूनियर से, रकट से, झार से, कि एक अच्छा कैटलॉग हमें बनाना चाहिए। फिर उस कैटलॉग में एक परेशानी ये आने लगी कि उसमें जो है जो इम्पोर्टेंट सिम्टम्स हैं उसका सैक्रिफाइस होने लग गया है, वो जो है करेक्ट रेमेडी पिक्चर नहीं दे पा रहे थे। तो हैनेमैन साहब ने रिपर्टरी को यूज़ करने से मना किया था। उसके बाद में उन्होंने ये कहा कि हमें एक ऐसा सिस्टम चाहिए, एक ऐसा टूल चाहिए जो कि सर्च करके हमें एक रिट्रीवल सिस्टम हमें चाहिए, जो हमें सर्च करके ढूंढ के बता सके। इतनी सारी दवाइयाँ बढ़ती जा रही थी, तो सिम्टम्स के जब बढ़ते जा रहे थे तो उनको ऐसा लगा कि ऐसा कोई टूल होना चाहिए जिससे हम इसके अंदर से एक्सट्रैक्ट कर सकें। तो अभी तक क्या होता था, जो कन्वेंशनल प्रोग्राम्स हैं उनका जो एक्सट्रैक्शन है वो उतना ही है जितना आप बताओगे उसको। जैसे बहुत सारे होम्योपैथिक सॉफ्टवेयर्स हैं आप यूज़ करते होंगे, तो लेकिन एआई उससे थोड़ा सा एक स्टेप आगे है। एक स्टेप आगे ऐसे है कि उसके अंदर सिमेंटिक सर्च होता है। तो अगर आप आपके होम्योपैथिक सॉफ्टवेयर में ये सर्च करना चाहें कि पेन इन स्टमक, तो अगर आप वो रूब्रिक सर्च करना चाहते हैं तो आपको पेन और स्टमक सर्च करना पड़ेगा। वो सर्च बॉक्स में है जो आप सर्च करते हैं, और अगर आपने उसके अंदर एब्डोमेन एंड पेन सर्च किया तो वो स्टमक सर्च नहीं दिखाएगा, कुछ दिखाएंगे, लेकिन उसके अलावा जो एक यूनिवर्स ऑफ सिम्टम्स हैं स्टमक पेन के, वो शायद आप नहीं देख पाए। वहां पे आता है एआई। एआई क्या करता है, वो आपके सवाल को समझता है और समझने के बाद में उसके और क्या क्या मायने होते हैं, वो सारे मायनों से वो सारे सिम्टम्स निकाल करके लाएगा जो आप चूक सकते हैं। ये एक बड़ा स्ट्रेंथ है एआई का, सिमेंटिक सर्च, जो कि आपको अपने क्लिनिकल प्रैक्टिस में आगे जब भी आप प्रैक्टिस शुरू करेंगे तब यूज़ करना चाहिए, क्योंकि वो एक टूल है। अब जैसे मैंने पहले बताया था कि ये क्लॉड कोड है ना, एंथ्रोपिक, जेमिनाई, चैट जीपीटी, इससे आप बाहर आ सकते हैं। एक ओपन सोर्स जो है मॉडल्स हैं बहुत सारे, मिस्ट्रल है, क्वेन है, तो उसको आप यूज़ कर सकते हैं और आपके कंप्यूटर पे चलेगा बिना इंटरनेट के, कोई ज़रूरत नहीं है आपको इंटरनेट की, और उससे भी आप कर सकते हैं। लेकिन चूंकि आपके मोबाइल पे ये अवेलेबल है तो आप इसको यूज़ करने में थोड़े आसानी महसूस करते होंगे। तो यहाँ पर जो मैं बात कहना चाह रहा था कि हैनेमैन साहब ने जो ये कहा था कि रिपर्टरी के साथ में हमें एक रिट्रीवल टूल की ज़रूरत है, और वो रिट्रीवल टूल अब आया है उनके जाने के 200 साल के बाद। तो अब दूसरा, अगर आप देखोगे कि कोई एक सिम्टम है तो उसको हम रिपर्टरी में कैसे कन्वर्ट करते हैं, ये आप देखेंगे कि ये एलेंस कीनोट में एक सिम्टम है, बिफोर स्टूल्स रंबलिंग, वायलेंट सडन अर्जिंग, हेवीनेस इन रेक्टम ड्यूरिंग स्टूल, टेनेसमस एंड मच फ्लेटस आफ्टर स्टूल पेन। अच्छा, इसके बाद ये जो है स्पेशल इफेक्ट दे रहे हैं डॉक्टर साहब, इसको हम कन्वर्ट करते हैं रिपर्टरी के रूब्रिक में। तो देखिए यहाँ पे रिपर्टरी का रूब्रिक क्या हो गया, यहाँ पे हो गया स्टूल बिफोर रंबलिंग, तो ये एलोस्कोट्रीना का एक सिम्टम हो गया। फिर आ गया स्टूल बिफोर अर्जिंग सडन वायलेंट। तो कहने का मतलब ये है, आप देखेंगे कि एक सिम्टम है जो कि टोटलिटी में एक सिम्टम है, उस सिम्टम को आपने ब्रेक कर दिया 6 अलग अलग रूब्रिक में, और इनमें से कोई एक रूब्रिक आप ढूंढेंगे अपने पेशेंट के लिए, तो क्या वो टोटलिटी रह गया? ये एक सवाल है। अब उसको हम कैसे एड्रेस करते हैं? उसको एड्रेस करने के लिए डॉक्टर केंट ने कहा है, डॉक्टर केंट ने ये कहा है कि इट इज द ड्यूटी एंड इट इज मैंडेटरी फॉर अ होम्योपैथिक डॉक्टर टू गो बैक टू मटीरिया मेडिका and confirm it in the materia medica, then only prescribe। मतलब ये आपका जिम्मेदारी है आपकी, आप रिपर्टराइजेशन करने के बाद आपको मटेरिया मेडिका खोलना है और वहां पर फिर से पूरा आपको देखना है कि ये दवा एक टोटलिटी के रूप में उस पेशेंट को सूट करेगी कि नहीं करेगी। तो अब इतनी फास्ट लाइफ में आपको ये कर पाने में शायद थोड़ी सी दिक्कत होगी, थोड़ा सा कम्बरसम प्रोसेस है ये। तो यहाँ पर ही जो है हम एआई की मदद लेते हैं। तो कैसे रिपर्टरी हम बनाते हैं? तो सबसे पहले सिम्टम लेते हैं प्रूविंग से, उसको ब्रेक करते हैं और उसको कन्वर्ट करते हैं रूब्रिक तक, और फिर रूब्रिक ढूंढते हैं, फिर वापस जाते हैं, कन्वर्ट करते हैं और फिर मटेरिया मेडिका में ढूंढते हैं। तो ये सब करने की ज़रूरत क्या है? अब आपके पास में वो रिट्रीवल टूल आ चुका है, तो आप अब उस टूल को यूज कर सकते हैं। ये बात समझ में आ रही है आपको? तो यहां पर डॉक्टर केंट ने खुद कहा है कि आप जो रिपोर्टरी पढ़ते हैं इसमें हम टोटलिटी को सैक्रिफाइस कर देते हैं आपके ईज के वजह से। यू सैक्रिफाइस द टोटलिटी फॉर योर ईज, लेकिन आपकी जिम्मेदारी है कि आप जाएं बाहर वापस और मटीरिया मेडिका पढ़ें। ये आप देखेंगे एक ना सबसे लॉन्गेस्ट रूब्रिक है केंट की रिपोर्टरी में, 313 अल्फाबेट्स हैं इसके अंदर। और ये जो रूब्रिक है, मुझे नहीं लगता कि कोई होम्योपैथिक डॉक्टर ने कभी इस रूब्रिक को यूज किया हो, क्योंकि पढ़ने से मुझे समझ में नहीं आया एक बार में। इट्स वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू गो थ्रू दिस रूब्रिक। वो क्योंकि रिपर्टोरियल लैंग्वेज में उन्होंने ऐसा लिख दिया है। तो आप सोचिए कि कितना बड़ा यहाँ पर सैक्रिफाइस हुआ होगा टोटलिटी का। अब अगर ये बात है तो सॉल्यूशन क्या है? तो सॉल्यूशन मैंने आपको बताया, AI इज अ गुड सॉल्यूशन। अब अगर AI अच्छा सॉल्यूशन है तो आप लोगों ने सबने ये बात सुना होगा कि इसको हमें प्रॉम्प्ट देना पड़ता है। सुना है आप लोगों ने? तो आप लोग प्रॉम्प्ट कैसे देते हैं? उसे सवाल पूछते हैं आप, है ना? सवाल पूछने का एक तरीका होता है। तो वो जो तरीका है उसको हम कहते हैं क्राफ्ट फ्रेमवर्क। ये जो क्राफ्ट फ्रेमवर्क है, इसके अंदर में जो सबसे पहला होता है उसको हम कहते हैं कॉन्टेक्स्ट, और दूसरा जो होता है वो होता है रोल, तीसरा जो होता है वो एक्शन, और F फॉर फॉर्मेट, और जो T है इट स्टैंड्स फॉर टोन। अगर आपको कोई भी प्रॉम्प्ट लिखना है और उसमें ये 6 बातें आप इंक्लूड कर लेंगे तो आपका जो जवाब आएगा वो सटीक आएगा। तो इस तरह का जो फ्रेमवर्क है इसको आप अपने प्रॉम्प्टिंग में यूज कर सकते हैं। तो शुरू में जब ChatGPT आया था, हम सभी लोग इसको यूज कर रहे थे, तो हम कुछ प्रॉम्प्ट दे रहे थे, वो कुछ गलत जवाब दे रहा था, ऐसे ही बहुत बार हो रहा था, है ना? तो ये एक तरीका है जहाँ पे कॉन्टेक्स्ट जो है ये सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट है। आप बाकी सब छोड़ भी देंगे, कॉन्टेक्स्ट आपको पकड़ के रखना है। आपने बार जो है 3 इडियट्स में देखा, वो प्रोफेसर पूछता है, अरे भाई कहना क्या चाहते हो? सुना है आप लोगों ने? तो यही बात वो जो है ChatGPT आपसे पूछना चाहता है कि आप कहना क्या चाहते हो। तो आप जब अच्छे से कम्युनिकेट करोगे तो जवाब भी वो अच्छा देगा, ठीक है? तो ये जो है AI वर्ल्ड में क्राफ्ट फ्रेमवर्क यूज होता है। तो इस क्राफ्ट फ्रेमवर्क का एक देसी वर्जन मैंने अपने लिए बनाया है जो मैं यूज करता हूं। तो उसके अंदर में आप देखेंगे कि सबसे पहली सवाल आपको पूछना है कि क्या चाहिए आपको। सबसे पहले आपको चाहिए क्या? आपको निबंध चाहिए, आपको ईमेल चाहिए, आपको प्रिंसिपल साहब को इंटर्नशिप ज्वाइन करने के एप्लीकेशन लिखना है, इंटर्नशिप का पैसा नहीं मिला उसके लिए लिखना है, जो भी आपको लिखना है वो आपको सबसे पहले कॉन्टेक्स्ट देना है कि क्या बोलना क्या चाहते हो आप, ठीक है? ये पहले आप दे दीजिए कि ईमेल लिखना चाहते हो, एप्लीकेशन लिखना चाहते हो, जो भी बोलना चाहते हो। दूसरे नंबर पे कि किस बारे में है, सब्जेक्ट आपको बताना है इसके अंदर। तीसरा जो है आप उसको चाहते हो कि वो कैसा लिखे, वो पॉइंट वाइज लिखे, डिटेल लिखे, है ना? तो वो जो है आपको क्रमबद्ध चाहिए, जैसा भी आपको चाहिए वो आप फॉर्मेट लिख दीजिए। और उसके बाद में कितना, ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। आपको समरी चाहिए, आपको डिटेल्स चाहिए, आपको डीप थिंकिंग, डीप रिसर्च चाहिए। वो कैसा चाहिए वो आप जरूर लिख दीजिए, क्योंकि होता ये है अमूमन कि आप उसको कोई भी प्रॉम्प्ट दोगे वो बिल्कुल शुरू हो जाता है, और अगर वो आपका जो है डेली लिमिट खा जाता है उसके चक्कर में, और आपको चाहिए 2 लाइन का आंसर, तो आप उसको बता दीजिए कि भाई 2 लाइन का आंसर चाहिए मेरे को, उससे ज़्यादा आप मत बोलिए, क्योंकि उसको ना बोलने की थोड़ी आदत है, उसको लैकेसिस जैसा ना, उसको लैक्वेसिटी है, तो उसको जो है आपको रोकना पड़ेगा, तब जाकर के वो समझेगा और वैसा आपको आंसर देगा। तो जैसा एक जो है आप लोगों ने फेमस मूवी में सुना होगा कि दोस्ती में नो सॉरी नो थैंक यू, मेरे ख्याल से हमारे ज़माने की मूवी है वो, तो आप लोगों ने अगर सुना हो तो इसमें एक रिसर्च ये देखा गया कि जितने भी लोग प्रॉम्प्ट करते हैं, आपको आवाज आ रही है? एक रिसर्च ये पाया गया कि जितने भी लोग एआई का यूज करते हैं और प्रॉम्प्ट्स देते हैं, उसमें लिखते हैं प्लीज मुझे बता दो, थैंक यू, ये बहुत अच्छा बताया आपने। तो रिसर्च ये कहती है कि इन शब्दों से आप अपनी डेली लिमिट खत्म कर लोगे, उससे उसको कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता। आप उसको थैंक यू लिखो चाहे नहीं लिखो, उसको सॉरी बोलो, आप उसके ऊपर गुस्सा करो, वो कुछ भी उसको फर्क नहीं पड़ता। आपको वो लिखने की कोई जरूरत ही नहीं है, वो आपके जवाब को अच्छा नहीं बनाने वाला। ठीक है, तो नो सॉरी नो थैंक यू। ठीक है, अब आ जाइए कि हम होम्योपैथी में इसका इस्तेमाल कैसे करने वाले हैं। ये एक वेबसाइट है जो सबसे अच्छा रिसोर्स है, homeoint.org, और /English जरूर लिख लीजिएगा क्योंकि वो फ्रेंच है, तो आपको ये जो है इंग्लिश में मिल जाएगा। इस वेबसाइट पर आपको सारे रिपोर्टरी, सारी मटीरियल मेडिका पुराने आपको यहाँ पे मिल जाएंगे। मोस्टली आप हो सकता है बोरिक यूज करते हो या एलेंस यूज करते हो, तो वो जब यहाँ पर आपको मिल जाएगा, उसका लिंक ले लीजिए। हाँ, ये लाइव जो आप देख रहे हैं, तो ये आप इसका लिंक ले लीजिए। कोई भी मेडिसिन को आपको समझना है एज ए स्टूडेंट, आपको कोई मेडिसिन को समझना है, ठीक है, तो आप क्या करेंगे, उस मेडिसिन के लिंक पे पहुंच जाइए। जैसे मान लीजिए आपने बोरिक खोला और बोरिक के अंदर आप जो है या कैंट एलेंस कुछ भी आप एक खोल लीजिए। अब यहाँ पर अल्फाबेट में चले जाइए, एस में चले जाइए, ऊपर अल्फाबेट्स में एस में चले जाइए। यहाँ पर आप कोई भी एक मेडिसिन चूज कर लीजिए। अब यहाँ पर आप देखेंगे कि ऊपर एक लिंक आ गया है, उस लिंक को कॉपी कर लीजिए। ये कौन सी मेडिसिन है? चलेरिया। तो आप अब इस लिंक को वहां चैट जीपीटी में पेस्ट कीजिए और उससे बोलिए गो टू दिस लिंक एंड समराइज दिस पेज फॉर मी। हिंदी में भी बोल सकते हैं आप, इस लिंक पे जाओ और इस पेज को समराइज करके मुझे बताओ। इस मेडिसिन को आपको वो आसान शब्दों में समझा देगा। मान लीजिए आपको फिर भी समझ में नहीं आया, तो बोलिए कि मैं 5वीं का बच्चा हूं, मुझे और समझाइश आसान बना ली। मतलब आप जितना आसान बनाना चाहते हैं उसको आप आसान बना सकते हैं। वही क्राफ्ट फ्रेमवर्क यूज कर लीजिए, आपको इस तरह से जल्दी और सटीक आंसर मिलेगा। इसको हम कहते हैं रैग, रिट्रीवल ऑगमेंटेड जनरेशन कहते हैं। इसके अंदर ज्यादा अच्छा आता है आंसर। तो देखिए बहुत सारे डिफरेंट टूल्स हैं, जिसमें से शायद आप चैट जीपीटी और जेमिनाई जानते होंगे और क्लॉड मेरे ख्याल से जानते होंगे। तो नोटबुक एलएम बहुत अच्छा टूल है सारे स्टूडेंट्स के लिए, जहां पे आप एक नोटबुक की तरह अपने लिंक्स को डालते जाएंगे और उस लिंक का पूरा समराइज करके आपको वो डिटेल देगा। आप फिर उससे बोलिए कि मुझे ये इमेज फॉर्म में चाहिए, मुझे ये इंफोग्राफिक चाहिए, मुझे ये पीपीटी में चाहिए, जिस भी तरह से आपको वो चाहिए आप 10 लिंक दे दीजिए और बोलिए इस 10 लिंक को समराइज करके एक पीपीटी बना के मुझे दे दो, तो वो आपको दे देगा। उसके बाद में जो है लिटरेचर और एविडेंस बेस्ड रिसर्च, जहाँ पे आपको रेफरेंसेस चाहिए। आप अपना एक थीसिस बना रहे हैं, आप क्लास का एक प्रोजेक्ट बना रहे हैं, कोई स्टडी कर रहे हैं सब्जेक्ट को, आपको चाहिए रेफरेंसेस, तो आप परप्लेक्सिटी पे जाइए। और परप्लेक्सिटी शायद जियो के साथ या एयरटेल के साथ फ्री है, हाँ, तो वो आप यूज कर सकते हैं। फिर दूसरा मेडिकल स्ट्रीम के लिए स्पेसिफिक है कंसेंसस, तो ये आप कंसेंसस भी आप यूज कर सकते हैं, ये फ्री टूल्स हैं। और एमसीक्यूज जो लोग करना चाहते हैं, जो लोग कॉम्पिटिटिव एग्जाम्स की तैयारी कर रहे हैं, वो न्यूरल कंसल्ट यूज कर सकते हैं या एम्बॉस यूज कर सकते हैं। उसके बाद में अगर आपको क्रैप साइकिल समझना है या आपने कोई नई चीज ढूंढी है और आप चाहते हैं कि उसका फ्लो चार्ट बन जाए या उसका साइकिल बन जाए, तो आप फिर नैपकिन एआई यूज कर सकते हैं। इस तरीके से ये कुछ टूल्स हैं। इसके अलावा भी बहुत सारे हैं, ये कुछ फ्री टूल्स हैं जो आप यूज कर सकते हैं। अब एक बहुत बड़ा सवाल आता है हेलुसिनेशन। ये आपने सुना है? मटीरियल मेडिका में तो सुना है आपने ना, इल्यूजन, डिल्यूजन, हॉल्यूसिनेशन। एआई बहुत हेलुसिनेट करता है। तो इसमें हेलुसिनेट का मतलब ये है कि आप उससे कुछ सवाल पूछते हैं, उसका जवाब उसको नहीं पता, तो लैक्वोसिटी है उसको, तो जवाब तो देगा ही देगा आपको, पहले ही बना के दे। तो ऐसा नहीं कहेगा कि नहीं मुझे नहीं पता, ऐसा बोलेगा ही नहीं वो कभी। अभी नए जो कुछ मॉडल्स हैं वो शायद बताने लग गए हैं, लेकिन इससे पहले सारे मॉडल्स आपको गलत जवाब देंगे, बहुत स्ट्रॉन्ग। ऐसा मैंने देखा कि एक कोई सवाल मैंने उससे पूछा, उसने कहा कि बोरिक ने अपनी मटेरियल मेडिका में ऐसा ऐसा कहा है। मेरे पास किताब रखी थी, मैंने खोल के देखा, उसमें कहीं उसने नहीं कहा। ठीक है, तो आप लोग ये गलती मत करना। मेरे कुछ स्टूडेंट्स हैं, वो भी ऐसे लेकर के आए थे मेरे पास में थीसिस, और उसको जब मैंने पढ़ा तो मैंने देखा कुछ ऐसी चीजें उसमें लिखी थी जो उस मेडिसिन में थी ही नहीं। तो आपको डबल चेक उसको करना पड़ेगा। उससे बचने का जो तरीका मैंने आप बताया वो है रैग, मतलब आप उसको लिंक देंगे तो वो गलती नहीं करेगा। लेकिन आप उससे बिना लिंक दिए पूछोगे या बिना पीडीएफ दिए पूछोगे, आप पीडीएफ भी अपलोड करके उससे पूछ सकते हो कि ये पीडीएफ है, इसको पढ़ो और जवाब दो। लेकिन अगर आपने उसके नॉलेज पे भरोसा किया और उसके पास वो जवाब नहीं है तो वो बना के आपको बता देगा। तो सबसे पहली चीज है हॉलुसिनेट जब वो करेगा तब जब वो आपकी बात को नहीं समझा, तो उसको समझाना है ठीक से, या उसके पास में जवाब नहीं है तो भी वो हेलुसिनेट करेगा। और या फिर लो आईक्यू, जिस मॉडल पे आप काम कर रहे हो, मतलब चैट जीपीटी का 3.3 वर्जन या क्लॉड का पुराना वर्जन या ऐसा कोई वर्जन जो कि होम्योपैथिक डेटा पे ट्रेंड नहीं है, उससे आप पूछोगे तो भी वो हेलुसिनेट करेगा। हेलुसिनेट करने का मतलब है कि गलत जवाब देना। तो ये हेलुसिनेशन से आपको बचना है। तो आप देखिए, ये बच्चों को पढ़ने का बहुत अच्छा टूल है। अब मान लीजिए आप किसी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन को पढ़ना चाहते हैं, आपने निकाला आर्स निगम एल्बम, आप उसका कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन पढ़ रहे हैं, फिजिकल कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन पढ़ रहे हैं, और आपको ये समझ में नहीं आ रहा है कि ये एक्चुअली में दिखता कैसा होगा, तो आप एआई से बोल सकते हैं कि ये उसका फिजिकल कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है, या उस लिंक पे जाइए, उसका फिजिकल कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन निकालिए और मुझे एक पिक्चर बना करके बताइए ताकि मैं समझ सकूं। तो ये आपके जो है पढ़ने के हिसाब से एक बड़ा अच्छा टूल है जिसको आप इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं। फिर ये फॉस्फोरस का हमने निकाला था, तो ये फॉस्फोरस कैसा दिखता है, तो ये पेशेंट आपको कैसा दिखेगा, ये शायद थोड़ा और आपको अच्छे से दिखेगा, जहाँ कैकैक्सिया आपको दिख रहा है, ट्यूबरक्लोज पेशेंट है। और एक जो क्लासिक जो मटेरियल मेडिका के टीचर्स और वाइवा में पूछते हैं वो क्या है, सल्फर। तो सल्फर का कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन आपसे बहुत पूछा जाता है, तो सल्फर का जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है वो भी आप समझ सकते हैं। तो इस तरीके से आप जो मेडिसिन आप लोग पढ़ रहे हैं उसके बारे में आप समझ नहीं पा रहे हैं और आपको उसको विजुअलाइज करना है, तो ये विजुअलाइज करने का बड़ा अच्छा टूल है। मोटा मोटा ये है कि इसको आप एज ए टूल यूज कर सकते हैं, ये आपको कभी रिप्लेस नहीं करेगा, कर भी सकता है। गूगल डीप माइंड के जो सीईओ हैं उन्होंने कहा है कि अगले 4 साल में हमको एजीआई मिल जाएगा। अभी एआई है, फिर ये आर्टिफिशियल जनरल इंटेलिजेंस हो जाएगा, तो ह्यूमन लाइक थिंकिंग हो जाएगी उसकी, तो ह्यूमन लाइक बिहेव करना शुरू कर देगा वो। तो वो समय भी बहुत करीब है। लेकिन इस सब में आपकी जो पढ़ाई है, आपका जो नॉलेज है, वो हमेशा इसके ऊपर है। वो कैसे है? जब भी ये हॉलुसिनेट करके गलत जवाब देगा तो एक बिना पढ़ा हुआ व्यक्ति उसको समझ नहीं पाएगा, और एक अच्छा पढ़ा हुआ व्यक्ति जो आप लोग मेहनत करते हैं तो आप समझ जाओगे किसने गलत जवाब दे दिया। ठीक है, तो आपको जब अचानक से कोई दवा आपके दिमाग में नहीं आ रही है और आपको एक टूल चाहिए, तो आपके जेब में है वो टूल, आप निकालते हैं उसको और उसमें आप सर्च करके एक 5 रेमेडीज के ग्रुप तक पहुंच सकते हैं, जहां पर आपको बड़ी आसानी से रेमेडी डिफरेंशिएशन करना आ जाएगा। तो अभी जो प्रॉम्प्ट बनाने का तरीका है ये आप समझ पाए, क्योंकि वो प्रॉम्प्टिंग पे डिपेंड करेगा कि आप ये, अच्छा इसमें ये भी है कि बहुत अच्छी इंग्लिश लिखने की ज़रूरत नहीं है आपको। बिल्कुल टूटी फूटी भाषा में भी आप लिख सकते हो, लेकिन आपको अपनी बात को समझाना है। हिंदी में लिखें आप, चाहे इंग्लिश में लिखें, उससे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता, लेकिन आप अपनी बात को कह पाएं जैसे आप अपने दोस्त से कहते हैं, वैसा ही आपको उससे बात करनी है। तो जैसे आपको कहना है कि भाई मुझे एक पिक्चर बना के दो जिसमें कि आर्सेनिक दवा की कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के बारे में हो, और वो एक इंडियन हो, क्योंकि वो आपको यूरोपियन बना के दे देगा, है? तो आप उससे बोलिए कि वो एक इंडियन हो, तो वो आपको और अच्छा समझ में आएगा। या आप चाहते हैं कि सल्फर का स्किन कैसा दिखता है, या डर्मेटाइटिस उसका कैसा दिखता है, या ग्राफाइटिस का ऊजिंग आपको कैसा दिखता है, तो वो आप इससे, तो ये एक टूल है जिससे आप अपनी पढ़ाई में इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं और अपने आप को अपग्रेड कर सकते हैं। तो ये मैं कुछ डेमोन्स्ट्रेशन आपको दिखाना चाह रहा था, लेकिन वो कुछ चल नहीं पा रहा है ठीक से, इसीलिए हम इसके बारे में कभी और डिटेल में बात कर सकते हैं, जहाँ पे मुझे आपको रिसर्च पेपर्स लिखने के लिए कौन से टूल्स हैं और कैसे हम उसको लिख सकते हैं उसके बारे में बताना था। तो मैं समझता हूँ कि आपको कुछ इंसाइट मिला होगा, और थैंक यू वेरी मच फॉर योर पेशेंस लिसनिंग।